Hello, my name is Dr. Teresa Ashman, co-founder of Compendium Network, here to answer more questions about problem solving. Today's question: how do you know if your problem has been solved? One of the ways that you can determine this is whether or not you have achieved the desired outcome. If you have an initial problem and you realize that the issues associated with this problem no longer exist or have been resolved satisfactorily, then the problem likely has been solved. For example, suppose you have high blood pressure and the goal is to lower it into a healthy range. You may decide that you want to change your lifestyle a bit to be able to try to avoid having to start on medication. Let's say you effectively change some diet, some exercise, and your blood pressure goes down to a safe level. We may then be able to determine that the problem of high blood pressure has been effectively managed. A second way to determine whether or not a problem has been solved is by the reduction or elimination of symptoms associated with the problem. Since there are usually observable manifestations or symptoms connected to various problems that we may have, if they are reduced or eliminated, it suggests that the underlying problem has been addressed. For example, if you experience severe migraines, after a change to diet and medication, your migraines maybe occur much less frequently, indicating that these changes are helpful in helping you address the underlying issue. A third way of determining whether or not you've completed the problem-solving strategy is through feedback and satisfaction. Gathering feedback from other people, especially if they're affected by the problem, can provide valuable insight and help determine whether or not the problem has been solved. For instance, let's say you were recovering from surgery, and clinicians may ask you about your pain levels and your mobility. If over time you're reporting less pain, greater comfort, and a return to sort of normal activities, it suggests that the recovery process is going well and that the surgical treatment was effective. Another method of determining whether or not you've reached the conclusion of a particular problem you may be trying to solve is through data and metrics. Objective data and metrics can be used to address the effectiveness of a solution and determine if the problem has been solved. An example of this might be that many hospitals have to monitor infection rates in post-surgical patients. Let's say that they want to try a new sterilization procedure and see whether or not this affects infection rates. Uh, if they discover that it has indeed, after implementing this new procedure, infection rates have dropped, then they would be able to assess that yes, the data and metrics have moved in the solution to this particular problem and that there are lower infection rates that are occurring. Another way of being able to assess whether or not the problem has been effectively solved is through observation and monitoring. Continuous observation and monitoring can ensure that the problem remains solved over time. If the problem recurs or new issues arise, it may indicate that the solution was not comprehensive or additional steps are needed to address the underlying causes. For example, a person with asthma might be prescribed a new inhaler. Over the next few months, the person and the doctor will observe, are there fewer asthma attacks? If there is a decrease in the number of attacks, then it has some suggestion that the inhalant is working. However, let's say that there's still some level of monitoring that goes on for the first 6 months, and the doctor and the person may also realize that there were very few asthma attacks initially, and then after about 4 months, perhaps these attacks start to increase again, which may suggest that initially that inhaler might have been effective, but that over time it may be less effective. So we want to know, we maybe have a short-term solution, or maybe this is something that is more longer-term solution. And another final way that we can determine whether or not a problem has been effectively solved is looking at the long-term impact, right? Again, we're talking about how we may have quick solutions, but they may not actually serve and solve the longer-term issues that we want to be addressing. So the longer-term impact of any solution is important to determine and to see whether or not the problem resurfaces over time. A sustainable solution addresses not only the immediate concerns, but prevents the problem from recurring or minimizes its likelihood of recurring in the future. Okay, I hope this gave you some more tools and strategies for how to effectively problem solve. Until next time.